Hi, can anyone hear me? Good evening.
I can hear you. The room has been quiet.
Sorry, I'm very, very sorry. I got this mixed up. I thought the meeting was by 5, not 4. My apologies. Okay, we have a very full room. So, without further ado, I won't labor us too long. So that you have an idea who is speaking, I would be turning on my camera and then turning it off after. So, hi, my name is Nehemiah Onikachukwu Emmanuel, and currently I work as a software engineer at Faraday Africa. It's a startup that is focused on ethic. Um, Today we'll be going over one of the most important tools we use in the developer workflow. I mean, if you're a developer and you don't use Git and GitHub, then it seems like you've not started at all. So we'll be going over that today and basically introducing you to what Git and GitHub is. And I don't know if you're joining with our laptops so that it is practical, it is hands-on. We can just walk along with me while I take you in this journey together. So if you are joining us with your laptop, signify in the comments so I can have an idea how many of us are feeling practical with the class. Yeah, nice to meet you too, Sarah. So yeah, I am waiting for some comments. Just let me know how many of us are joining with our devices. I mean our laptops, sorry. Hey, hey, thank you. All right. Okay. Okay. That's a good thing then. All right, so let's get started. Give me one minute while I. Hey, thank you. All right, so give me one minute while I share these two things. That'll be a better way than actually just. Um, so this is not yet up, but let's just go ahead and get started. When the slide comes up, I'll let you know. So, first, when you first have any previous idea exactly on what this and GitHub is, I mean, I've explained that it's something we use as a developer. It is part of the necessary tools. But before now, have you heard about Git and GitHub? And I want to, you can use the chat. Just stick to using the chat. Back of that. So meanwhile, I would share my screen and take us to uh, the interface of Git and GitHub. So if you are not signed in, which we should try out now, and when you visit GitHub, this is where exactly you'll be taken to. And you can't explain GitHub without explaining what Git is. So let's talk about Git. So Git is a version control system. I mean, that's the usual way to explain, but that looks like plain grammar. Essentially, what Git does is help you to track changes and work with other developers on a project. By tracking changes, we mean keep track of your files so that you do not lose them, and then be able to collaboratively work on with other developers on a single code base at the same time, in real time, basically. So this person is working, this person is working on at the same time. That's essentially what Git is. And that's like plenty grammar. So let me break it down. So let's say, for example, we have a file. We are working on a file, for example. Um, Let me boot up VS Code. We are working on a file. I have one file and I make changes to that file. I work on new changes and I want to save that file. Now, usually the old way with how we do things is let me create a new folder here. So we have so here we have a new file. Let me create a new file here and for the new.py and the moments. So we have a new file and I make changes inside this file. X is equals to y. Sorry, X equals to 8, for example. And I'm done with what I am done here and I save this file. So yes, I saved this file. Now, usually how we do things before is when I make new changes to the file and I don't want to exactly override what was inside the file, I'll create a new version of it and probably name it new.py. So for example, I will duplicate this file. I'll copy this and paste it here at the same time. I'll then just create a new file here and call it new2.py and keep our file here. So I want to keep the code from new.py here and I don't want to override it. But I also want to like make a copy of it. So I can copy everything that is here and take it to new2.py and keep this here and then
Your screen is not bright, please.
not bright. I don't
Like I'm zooming in from my end and I still can't see the words from my end. I don't know for others. I can't see what's written on your screen. Like it's looking small. Yeah, it's okay now. Thank you.
Yeah. So now the changes I made inside, let me close it up. Inside this file called new2.py is x equals to 8. And I've made a ton of work here. But I want to make further changes to it, and I want to keep the existing way new2 this file works. So I copy everything from here, and I take it to new2.py, and I make further changes here. I is equals to 9, and I save it. And if I want to share this file with somebody else who I want to work on the project, I would have to copy this file or copy the folder and send it to that person through any means, maybe through email or uploading it to server and then sharing the link with the person so they can download this and then begin to work on it. And when they are done working on their own part of the code to or changes to, then they have to also send me the file back and we go back and forth exactly like that. So cutting these processes out is what Git and essentially version control platforms like GitHub and process essentially. So one, Git helps us to track changes to what we are working on. And we have to ask Git initially to begin to track changes to the file we are working with. So let me back this up again. What Git helps us do is to track changes in our folder, in our projects, in our code, and keep a track of those changes that should, in case you want to go back to the previous versions of the work you are doing, you can easily refer back to them. It also helps you to collaborate with other developers in real time. So somebody else can be working on this file at the same time as I am working on the file. And we have one central version called the source of truth where everybody can go from. So I'm already using GitHub 10. But essentially, we know that this folder here is the one folder that all of us actually are going to work from. So if I'm going using normal way, after working here, I would update a main folder. Let's say we have a folder somewhere, and if you want to start working on it, you have to go to that folder and copy it and then start working on it. So what Git just removes all of those manual processes. There's still manual parts if you want to use terminal or if you want to use a GUI like Git Objective Application to do all of that, do that. But it removes this manual process and this tedious process of having to manage those files. It is tedious. And I think you've experienced it if you've worked with other things apart from coding, for example. If you're working with Microsoft Word files, for example. So if I make changes and I have to save it, I'm some sure we have experienced something like you work on a file and you forgot to save the file and you close the file and you did not get a prompt that you did not save this file, or your system shut down or something happens like that. Yeah, things like that is what Git helps us also to avoid. So even in VS Code, if you use VS Code, for example, if I have autosave turned on, so that is why my file will be automatically saved. Or if I make new changes here and make new changes, and I do not save the work I am doing here before I leave here, I may lose the work I have actually done. So most platforms now have autosave turned on and enable to do that. But for your code base, in terms of like how your hard drive, for example, laptop hard drive crashed and you're saving the code on your laptop and now you cannot longer access it, or it was stolen, your device was stolen, or one of that story came into it. Avoiding this kind of issues is what GitHub helps us to do. So let's go back to GitHub. And yeah, GitHub is used by is a platform that gives you more abilities for what about Git as a version control system. I hope you can hear me in this noise. Please let me know if you can hear me well.
It's breaking.
Oh, sorry about that. I mean, inside this noise, where I am, they just playing City and it's loud. Let me know if you can see the noise. I'll try to speak as loud as I can, which is what I'm actually trying to do. So can you still hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. All right. So yeah, sorry about the network. I don't have much control over that. I hope it's as minimal as possible here. Sure. So let's get started. So one, if you don't have a GitHub account, there are different ways to using Git and using GitHub. And using Git essentially has to do with you knowing what Git is about and setting up Git on your computer. And if you're using Windows, I'm currently using Mac. If you're using Windows, you will do this from something like command prompt. Or if you already have Git installed, then you do that in the Git bash shell. So I have Windows here, but I don't know about setting that up. Sake of people who are using Windows. But let's see. So give me a moment. All right, we are back. So the first step you would take if you are using Windows is to install Git on your computer. I don't think it's installed by default in most operating systems. So the first thing you want to do is install Git. And to do that, you go to git.scm. I'm not very sure of the address, so I want to open up the browser and check that. Okay, so it's gitscm.com. This is where you would go to download Git and set it up on the computer. You don't have one. So let me drop that in the chat actually. All right, so go to gitscm.com and then download Git for your operating system here, which I think is Windows. But depending on your Windows version, there are different versions you have to download here. And if you are not using, if you don't want to, if you already have Git installed on your computer, or if you're using Linux or Mac, then by default you have Git already installed in your computer. And what you have to do is go to your terminal, and you already have Git there. So type Git and then double hyphen version, and you see what version of Git you have running on your computer. Let me paste that command. So when you come to this page, click here to download the latest version, or select if it's 32-bit version or 64-bit version that you would want to download. Now, by default, I am going for this, and 32-bit is, if you have a 32-bit system, you can download the 32-bit version. If you have a 64-bit system, you can download either the 32-bit or the 64-bit version, any of them. So let me just go for the 64-bit version here. Okay, so this will take some time. And while that is downloading, let's move over to GitHub and talk about how we can set up an account here. So with GitHub, if you don't have an account before, you would go to sign up. If you have an account, then you come to sign up. I have an account previously, but I would walk you through the process of setting up a GitHub account. So first, click on sign up. And the first thing you basically have to do is enter your email address you want to sign up for an account. All right, so let's go ahead to this thing. Okay. Give me a moment. All right, so enter your email address. This is a version of my email address, so don't worry about it. And then next, you would want to create a password. So set a password that you would like to use. Let me just create a random password. Git check for your password. So yeah, your password has to be a combination of at least 15 characters. Wow. Okay. Now the choice is what. Let me just copy this. Let me not forget that password. Let's say this conversion. You create a password and then continue and select a username you would want to use. Now, I have to delete this GitHub account later on. I'm just creating this to walk you through the process of creating one. So first, your email address, next the password, and you pick a username. Username is unique to you, so if somebody else has used it, we do that. So let me create. Us. So username is available at so this is a very long username. I don't advise you use something that you cannot remember. Just try to use something that is short and remember. You can remember. Again, let me start this so I don't forget it. But then this would ideally be what it is. And no, I don't want to. Start a puzzle. Uh, all right, create account. Next, I would want to check my emails. And then okay, this is necessary, but you can skip the personalization here, so I'll go ahead with skip the personalization. And thank you, GitHub, for the very nice experience. So that's it. We've created a GitHub account, and welcome to GitHub. And for now, there's nothing you've done yet. It's not created a repository. We've not done anything, so we have kind of like a blank dashboard. But then you can do other things. You can do other things on your profile by modifying your profile, but you don't have to get into that. And this is what your profile will look like. So now we've created a GitHub account. Let's continue with setting up Windows Git on our Windows computer. So this is still downloading. All right. So to work with Git on our computer, we have two ways. I mentioned that you could use command prompts if you're using Windows. On Linux or Mac, you could use the terminal. But alternatively, you can use something called GitHub Desktop, and that provides like a visual interface like this if you're not the whole technical write code and see blank screens and write codes and then kind of person. So I already have GitHub Desktop installed here, I guess. Yes, I do. So go to just search for GitHub Desktop and then download that. And then so git desktop.github.com. I would paste the link also there when I get it. And select what version you want to download and for what browser you want to download. Here this will be for Windows, it will be for Mac, and I don't think it's available for Linux yet. I have not used on Linux myself, so I don't think it's available for Linux. So it's available for Mac and Windows. So let me send the link here. Wait a moment. All right, so I already have this installed, and I think the first thing you should do is create a GitHub account before you download GitHub Desktop, because you will need to authenticate with GitHub after you've done it. So I already have GitHub Desktop downloaded on my computer. Wait a moment now. I want to uninstall it so that we can go to the process of installing it again. But I want to be sure. Okay, I've seen it. So let me uninstall it from my own application. Yeah. Okay, so let me create it. So I've uninstalled it. So when you finish downloading GitHub Desktop, find where you downloaded it and run your download from there. And I want to do similar here on Mac. So this is where I save it before. All right, so let's open it up. Okay, so this is not uninstalled the way I wanted it to be. Give me a moment. Um, yeah, I think it's a fairly straightforward process to install GitHub Desktop. So it's not. I'm trying to actually just completely remove it and set it up from scratch and have the experience of walking through it. But it's very easy actually to do that. Let me still try and let me check if it has finished downloading. Still downloading. So still have quite the time to wait. So let me try to install download that. But meanwhile, you can on your laptop walk through the process of creating an account first and then downloading GitHub Desktop. Yeah. And then let me try to walk into the process of installing GitHub Desktop and how it looks like. So okay. Yeah, I think it's a network. Sorry. Please, other people, let me know if you can see my screen.
Yes, you can see your screen.
Okay, so I guess it's your network. Sorry about that. I dislike a position that push supports to install like this. Anyway, let's run the back and start here. I'm sorry, give me a moment. While we are still waiting for Git to finish the download elements.
Your voice is breaking up. Is it just
Sorry,
from my end? Your voice was cracking up.
um, can you hear me? Can you hear me clear now? Is it better now?
Yeah, it's better now. I can hear you.
So I have tried to permanently delete GitHub on my computer, GitHub desktop, sorry, and if it doesn't work this time, then I think we will just go ahead with it. And let me try to install it again and see if that works. Okay, I guess it's the same thing that happened. Okay, so that did not work once again. That's the problem. All right. Anyway, when you download GitHub Desktop, I don't know if you try to download on Windows. That would take a very, very long time again. Meanwhile, let me check my downloads. Yeah. Okay, same thing. So when you download the GitHub Desktop, it's a fairly easy process, but there's a part where you have to connect your GitHub Desktop to your GitHub account, so you know who exactly you are. And it's not really technical since it has a visual interface, so it should be fairly easy enough for you to go through. And when you are done, when you set it up, you get a blank screen, but we don't have the repository created yet or anything done yet. And let's go back to check how much and how far we have gone. This thing has a long way to go. We have a pretty long way to go. So anyway, let's see how we can actually interact with Git, supposing we have Git already installed. Now, there are very commonly used GitHub commands, Git commands that we are going to be trying out. And the flow from which actually you could start using GitHub is first setting up Git in a project. So let's assume we create a project from scratch, and let's create a new project. Sorry. So let's create a new one. Let's call this my new project. And inside here, we don't have anything yet. But if you're using Visual Studio Code or an editor, you open this inside your browser, inside your editor you're using. So let's go to VS Code and let me create a new window. So here I would find that folder I have created and add it here. In Windows, you should be able to right click and open in VS Code. I think that feature is here. It's just not readily available to us anymore. So okay, we have our new project here. We added it here. So if you're using Visual Studio Code, by default, you should have something called, you should have this GitHub extension here created. This is source control repository. And it's basically the Git extension inside the VS Code. And it helps you to manage your repository right inside the VS Code. So you may not have to use the GitHub desktop application or use command prompt or terminal when you are working with the repository inside Visual Studio Code. So we've created this repository, we don't have anything inside. And if we create a new file, I'm assuming we are creating an index.html file, and probably want to start with style the CSS, and let's say we also have main. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Let me slow down a bit. So, no. Main dot thereafter. I am setting up a new project. So I want to build a sample web page for me, for example. This is how I have set up my project. So I have some HTML code here. I might have to be fast for this because so HTML, and then what should we do now? All right, so this does it basically. I set our style is that style.css. So we have set up our style.css. Okay, we also want to link to our JavaScript file. So Ah. What did I do? I think I have really long while I wrote HTML code. I'm very sorry about that. All right, so yeah, this is it. So I linked to my CSS file. I linked to my JavaScript file. So that's the both of them here. And sorry, I'm going to be fast on this part. I just want to set up the sample project. This head, and I've not created the head tag yet. And then get started with the body. I want to give a sample H1. So welcome to my new project. And should you CSS before? Okay, sorry about that. I think we don't like, I think that's all. Let's set it to black. All right, so that does it. So one thing, we've not saved our file, and that's why we have this set up here. So let me just tell me what to save. That should save everything. Now, if you go back to our file and try to open this in our browser, we have our new project set up here. Now, I want to set up Git inside this file so that I can work with changes. And as I said, if you are using the source control extension in Visual Studio Code, what you have to do is just click on initialize repository, and that'll be all. Now, I want to take us through the process of connecting to GitHub, and there's one moment. Okay, so I signed out from Visual Studio Code, from GitHub on Visual Studio Code, so that I walk through the process of connecting your code editor to your GitHub account. So if you want to do that, if you are using Visual Studio Code, unfortunately, if you're not using Visual Studio Code, this may not be exactly how you will do it. But if you're using Visual Studio Code, come to the icon you have here and click to sign in to use with GitHub. I'm using Copilot and the GitHub extension. And basically my GitHub account is connected to my Visual Studio account, so everything is synced at the same time. So I will come to sign in to sync here and sign in with GitHub. And it should take me to my browser. Now remember, I created a new account. Let's open. Okay, it's signed in with my other account. Let me sign out again. Let me sign out on this entirely here. Where we don't have this. So let's sign in once again, and this should ask you to sign in with my GitHub account I created. So you would enter the username and email address you used to create your GitHub account, and we saved out for. This was my username. So I would enter my username here, and this was my password, and I'll enter my password here, and I'm signing. All right, so let me verify that. So I would grant Visual Studio Code access to my GitHub account, and this will take me back to VS Code. All right, and I'll click on open. So I am logged in as this new account I just created, which should be your GitHub account essentially. And when I click to initialize the repository to publish to my GitHub account I created here. So as I said, from here. Now, if you're using Visual Studio Code, then you don't have to worry about using Git bash on your computer or using command prompt. Visual Studio Code has its own terminal, which works for everything we want to work for. So this should be it. I would basically go through processes. So our time is already going fast of setting this up. So first, let's use this extension here to set that up. So I'll click on initialize the repository, and this is where my repository is. So that's where I would click, and what this has done is essentially set up Git inside this code, inside this yes, inside this place. And if I want to review, sorry. Okay, so if you are using Windows, there's a way for you to view hidden files. So Git is set up with the .git extension, and I'm forgetting what it's used for. Sorry, Command Shift. Command Shift. Yep. So this is the Git that was initialized, and just to be very clear that this is how Git works. If I delete this file from here and I go back to VS Code, I see that there's no Git repository, and I'm back to initializing the repository. So when a repository is initialized, or when Git is initialized inside your project, it becomes a repository. So at this point, we have it as a project or as a folder where we have our code files in it. But then once we set up Git in it, it becomes a repository. And if we do it through that way, we'd have Git set up there. If you are using the terminal, what we could do is Git init, and this should set up what Git inside our repository. And if we come back here, we have Git set up here. So this sets up Git inside our project. And by default, it is hidden because files with that starts with dots are hidden on your computer. So you don't need to basically know what this file is doing or like modify it or tamper with the file. So it's hidden by default. So far, what Git has done is been set up inside our repository. And at this point, Git is aware of these changes. That's how we have changes here as index, main, and style the CSS. If you want to see this in terminal, type git status. And this shows me the files that are here inside my repository. Now, these are untracked files. And what untracked means is that Git is aware that there are files here, but is not aware of what is going on inside those files because we've not asked Git to start tracking these files or to become aware of the changes that are going on inside this file. So at this point, just like Git is an observer and it just knows what is here. If I create a new file here, for example, Git knows that a new file is created, but there's nothing that actually it can track inside this file. So no matter how many changes I make to my file here, if I make new changes here. Okay. All right, let me slow down. Let me slow down. Let me try and slow down. Sorry about that. So far, we've gotten to create a GitHub account. Inside Visual Studio Code, we've connected our Visual Studio Code to GitHub so that we can manage our repositories inside GitHub. That's what we've done so far. Now we are talking about setting up Git inside your repository, inside your project. So we created a project here, and I called it my new project. Inside this project, I created a bunch of files, HTML file, JavaScript file, and a CSS file. So you're setting up, you want to start building a website, for example, this is how we set it up. And if we go to our HTML file, we can see that it actually exists, and this is the file we have set up. Now, what we want to do is, let me backtrace, is set up Git in this place. And ideally, we'll set up Git, and Git will begin to track our files here. We can begin to use Git to monitor changes we make to our files, save those changes, and push our repository to GitHub. Now, I mentioned that at this point, what you have is a folder, the project folder, for example, we have, and it only becomes a repository. A repository is a folder that has Git in it. Basically, that Git is working inside of this. That's what we call a repository. And that's what you would push to GitHub. So GitHub would allow you to manage these repositories on your account or on other people's accounts to work. So at this point, we still have it as a folder, and we want to set up Git inside of it. Now, I opened this project inside Visual Studio Code, and I mentioned that if you are using Windows, if you right-click on your file, on your project folder, there should be an option to open it or just open in VS Code, set up somewhere here. If there is no one, open Visual Studio Code and click on File at the top, and then come to Add Folder to Workspace here, or click on Open Folder, whichever of them you want to go, and select the folder you want to open. Go to your computer and find the project. In this case, my new project, and click on Open. And that will open it. So I don't want to save this. So what we've just done is open our project inside Visual Studio Code. So we are kind of starting from afresh. Now, I have this file here. I have my style defined here. I don't have anything in JavaScript yet. And what we want to do now is set up Git. Now, I mentioned if you are using Visual Studio Code, this extension comes by default called source control, and it works with Git and GitHub automatically. So as long as I am signed into GitHub inside Visual Studio Code, this will work with my GitHub account and work with Git to monitor and track changes to every file I'm working on inside my project. So I mentioned that inside Visual Studio Code, you can use Visual Studio Code terminal to work with Git. If I prefer to use commands to work with Git, I can use the terminal. If I don't want to use that, then we can use GitHub Desktop, or we can just use this extension that is here. Any of them works fine. So we have a variety of options to use. And I want to show us how to set it up using the extension and how to set it up using terminal. And I will also demonstrate how to set it up using GitHub Desktop. So let's go with the extension. So first, we want to click on initialize repository. And what this will do is, okay, from the description here, you can see that this folder currently this folder doesn't have a Git repository. And you can initialize the repository, which would enable you to use Git inside this folder by clicking on initialize repository. So let's do that. Now, once we do this, I mentioned that if you to show that Git has been set up inside this repository, when you go to open your project and you are able to see hidden files on Mac, the command, the way to do that is Command Shift full stop and show me the hidden file that I'm here. Now, this is a Git folder, and this means Git has been set up inside my folder. These are Git's configurations. We don't have to touch any of these files, and that's why by default it's hidden. So I will not advise that you tamper with any of the files that are inside this place. So let's go back to Visual Studio Code. Now, I said at this point, this U stands for untracked, untracked, and untracked. And if you're using the terminal, you do Git status. I can see that I have untracked files here, and these are the key files I have inside my project. So one, I've demonstrated how to set up Git using this extension here. Now let's talk about how to set it up using just terminal. So let me clear this out. And let me delete this Git configuration from here. And when we come back here and refresh this in a moment. Yes, we are back to having it as it was before. So we removed it from that repository. Now, in terminal, if you're using command prompt, or terminal, how you would set it up is by starting with a command called git init. So let's do git init. And what this does is basically git initialize, as we saw for initialize repository here. So when I do this, I have set up git inside the repository. If I go back to this page, I can see this hidden git file here. So git has been set up, and that works. And then again, the files are on track. I mentioned that the fact that I've set up git doesn't mean that Git can immediately start tracking changes I've made to my file. So at this point, Git is aware of how my repository looks like. If there are files inside, if there are no files inside, it's currently aware about that. And for me to know that if I'm using only terminal, when I do git status, I will see that I have untracked files here. Also, inside the extension, I can see that I have this U stands for untracked. So these files are not being tracked. Now, the first step is initializing Git. Now, the second step is asking Git to become aware of files we have inside our repositories. And if we're using terminal, the way we would do that is something called, we first of all have to add every file here, sorry. So the next stage is the next process is something we call staging. So using the extension, I can come here and automatically stage all changes. And what this will do is Git will become aware of every file that is here currently. So I have added all these files to Git index. Index is like Git store. And basically, I know that I have a store basically, and I know that there are now 50 items inside the store. So originally, Git was just aware that we had a store and could just see the store, but you're not aware of what exactly was going on inside. Now we've told Git exactly what is inside our store. So here we have 3 files. We have just 3 files. If I create a new file inside this place, new.py, for example, and I check my Git extension, there's a new change here. Git is not tracking this file again, but it is aware of this other 3 files that are here. Now, we want to make a stamp in history. So let's go back to our store instance. So new products came into the store. These 50 products came into the store, and we want before we begin to sell them, we have to determine the price we want to sell these things. So I go to the 50 items and I set a price for each of them. Let's say I bought it at 13 naira and I want to sell it at 14 naira, for example. So at that point, I am making like a commit in history. The price may change later on. I may decide to bring the price down to 35 naira, or if I'm very generous, take it to 15 naira, for example. But the starting price we got started with before we could sell this product was 14 naira. We have to do the same thing for Git here. So making Git aware of the files is not enough. We also have to let it know like what state this file was, and it will start tracking from that point. So if we come back to our store instance, our starting price was 14 naira. If the price can change later, we can take it high and do as we want later on. But we can only know that we started selling this product for 14 naira. This was the original price they started at. At this point, Git knows this file was like, yeah.
Hi, good evening.
Hi, good evening.
Hi, this is Lois.
Okay, I'm sorry, I have no control. Sorry, let me turn on.
This is Lois.
Is it better now?
I am. Yeah, I'm just trying to speak with you. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. So there are like some students are like they dropped some comments for you in the chat section saying that you're too fast.
Yeah, I saw a couple of that. I tried to like.
And some chatted up. So is there a way you can just go back, like just brief recap and like take it really slow? Because they're like it's fast, and so and most people here don't know how to use Git. Like this is their first time using Git. So
Okay.
if you can, we really appreciate it if you can just go back and like just take it again, just slowly this time. Thank you.
Right. All right.
Yeah.
So let's go back to wait, first of all, did we maybe please let me know in the chat. We talked about creating a GitHub account. I want to know if we understood that process of creating a GitHub account. It's necessary that we have a GitHub account. So let me know if you understood that part, or if I have to go and start for creating a GitHub account again. Just let me know in the chat section. Okay. All right. So any other person, you understood the part we talked about creating a GitHub account. I mean, we walked through it visually so you could see exactly how we set it up. All right. So I guess it's the Git part that is kind of confusing. So yes, it is like that because you can see GitHub, like you can see GitHub, you can see the interface. But for Git is like thin air. It's like oxygen that we can breathe, but we cannot see exactly and we cannot hold. So let's put it that way. So GitHub works with Git. And I mentioned that Git is a version control. And starting from scratch, let's create a store, a physical store. So in your mind, imagine you have a physical store. You just started a physical store. And as with any store, if you do not have proper bookkeeping about your business, you are going to run into severe losses, or you're a very lucky person and you know how to handle mathematics in your head very well. So you keep everything inside your head. But then that also means that it's only you who can run your store. So because I don't keep records of what is going on, and I'm a very awesome mathematician, or I have a very history to everything inside my head, only me can administer my store. Because if I bring somebody else to come and work with me, they have to understand exactly the store, the exact same way I understand the store. So let's do the stores and instance. So we have a store and we have items. Our items are we sell things in the store, different kind of things. Now let's look at GitHub as the physical building for that store. Let's look at it that way. So if we want to keep our items, we have to keep them inside the store. And if we want to sell them, we have to bring them out from the store and then like we put them for on English is failing me. But basically, we put the items for sale on display, yes, on display outside so go to see. So what Git does is one, help you to manage your repositories. We'll come to talk about what the repository is exactly later on. And repositories are these items we have inside the store. So we sell buckets, sell books, sell biro, sell many things. These are repositories. We keep them inside the store. The same thing for GitHub. GitHub helps you to store your repositories. Now we have the option of I can keep them in my house, for example, or just leave them outside. But then also these items are also in the market. So one, we bought these items from seller A, we bought from seller B, we bought from seller C. But it is me who bought from all these people, and I have to keep them in one place. So a repository can be created by you on your laptop, for example, and you keep it on your laptop. But why that is fine. If I leave those items at the places where I bought them, then there's no way I'm going to sell them. I cannot tell you that I have an item and I'll have to take you to shop of the person who sells them, who I'm supposed to buy it from, and then show you what the item is. So I have to buy them from my seller and bring them to my own store. So it works the exact same way with this. Now, when I create projects I want to work on, a website, a landing page, a new mobile application, anything I want to work on, they are called project folders. Now, it becomes a repository when I set up Git inside a repository. So have this idea in your mind that without Git inside your folder, it's just a folder, it's just a project folder you have. When you set up Git, it becomes a repository. And repositories can either live on your laptop, which is very, very fine. But as I said, if I want people to know about these repositories, or I want somebody to work with me in that my store, I have to bring my items to my store. So it works the exact same way. I would have to take my repositories and put them on GitHub so that I know that it's always on GitHub. And I can share this repository with other people who might want to work with me on that repository. So GitHub helps you to store repositories. Our store keeps items. That works. So now, when we have an item, So now we have a repository. Remember, a repository is a project that has its set up in it. Now, when we have a repository, we want to be able to, now it's, okay, before I go ahead, please let me know if you understood this description I
Excuse me,
just gave.
please. Are you sharing your screen right now? Because I can't see anything showing on my screen. Are you sharing your screen?
Yes, I am sharing my screen, but I am not really doing anything. I'm just explaining. The screen is
Okay,
just
I can't see.
starting.
It's just your name that is showing here. I don't know if I'm the only one.
I can see
Okay,
your screen. I'm seeing your
okay,
screen.
I guess it's your
Okay,
network.
let
Sorry
me let
about
me go out and come back again.
All right. So before I go ahead, please let me know if you understood this description I just gave as to what a repository is and what GitHub is exactly. So let me know if you understand that before we go ahead to setting up what setting up Git inside a project. So just use the comment section and let me know. Okay. I've heard of from one person. I want to hear from 2 or 3 people before we go ahead. So that we don't have to come back to this again. Just let me know if you understood it. All right. All right. Beautiful, beautiful. All right. So let's go ahead. So to do that, I am going to have to let's delete everything we've done and start from scratch. Let me delete this. So let's say we want to set up a folder. I want to start working in a project, a website for somebody, a client or for me, myself, something I want to use to learn, for example. Now, I would create a new folder and we call that folder my new project. And this is my new folder. Now, we are using Visual Studio Code, as I mentioned. On Windows, I don't have Visual Studio Code inside Windows here. And finally, this guy has downloaded. Okay, so give me a moment here. So if you're using Windows, I mentioned that you first of all have to download Git inside on your computer and set it up. So this is a Windows environment on my Mac, and I have downloaded Git. I sent the link to download Git to the chat, so you should use that to download Git for your computer. Now I would run Git and install it on my computer. So we click on this, should open it. Okay, so that's coming up. So let's carry along while we install Git on our computer. For those of us using Windows, I mentioned that if you're using Mac, you already have Git installed on your computer already. You already have Git set up into your system. Same thing with Linux. So we have Git set up. So if you're using Windows, please follow along, pay attention, and follow along. I'm sharing my screen, so try to follow along. So next, we want to go with your choice if you want to read it or not. Just go with the defaults you have here. And where do I want to install? So you can go ahead with just what is here. You don't have to change anything here. If you want to, after installing, you want to see what you've done Git on your desktop, then you can check the first one. So let me assume that you check it out. So let's also check it. So go ahead with this. And I don't want to create a start menu folder. It's optional if you want to. By start menu folder, we mean this folder here. So when I click on this and click on all apps, do I want it to show up here? This is your start menu folder. So it's up to you. So check it if you want it to show up inside your start menu folder. If you don't want it to show up there, then leave it blank as it is. And we'll go on next. And no, we don't want to use Vim. If you have Visual Studio Code set up, you can select what editor you have set up here to use as Git's default editor. I'm going to use Visual Studio Code. Okay, I don't have Visual Studio Code installed here. Let me do this. If you have Visual Studio Code installed, select Visual Studio Code. If you have Sublime Text, whatever one you're Sublime or Atom, select the ones that you have available. I don't have any of this set up, so there's the option for Vim, I think. So I'm going to just go with Nano Editor by default. And next. So yes, Git made a change to how you name repositories. We switched over to master from main. This option, if you want to leave it as master, so let Git decide, and Git will name your default branch when you create a repository as master. Now, if you want to override that and set the default name, like maybe you want to use your name as your default name for a repository, then good and fine. You can modify that and put that here, but there's no need for it. So let's just leave this as master. Go ahead. So how would you like to use Git from the command line? Just go with recommended. Unless if you really, really know what you are doing here and you want to modify it. The same thing, just go ahead with OpenSSH. Go ahead with this. Go ahead with this. Go ahead with this. Yes, go ahead with this. And go ahead with this. Your choice also, but go ahead with this. You don't have to tick anyone here, so I'm just going to go ahead with default as much as you can and install. So give it a moment while Git installs.
Excuse me, sir. Please, can you zoom in your screen? I can't see your screen.
I can't zoom in this part. I'm sorry. Like, let me try. No, I can't. Let me try. Give me a moment. Okay, it's kind of worked. Well, this is too big. So I'm trying to make it bigger so that we can actually see this. I can't scale it further than this point. Okay, we try this. Let's see. I think we just have to manage this like this. I will just be here also. So so Git is installed and wait for that. All right, so Git is done, and you can decide to view release notes of anything you want to do. So we remember as Git installed, we just install something called Git bash. So I want us to just see if we view it what that looks like. So I'll click launch and then finish. And this is Git bash. So Git bash is like a better command prompt for Windows, and I can work with Git commands inside Git bash. Now, if you are the type of person that likes to do that, then this is an option for you. If you want to bring it up, search for open here and just search for Git bash. Yes, and then this will open Git bash, which we already have open here. So, okay, now this opens a new one. So you can just do whatever you want to do inside Git bash. It's very, very similar to working with terminal on Mac or Linux. And it's a little bit better, not a little bit actually, much better than the command prompt in terms of the commands that you can do inside Git bash. Difference between Git and GitHub. Sorry, are you just joining the class now? Because I have taken my time to explain that difference. Sorry, let me know if you are just joining the class because I already explained that earlier on. Hi, Robert. I don't know how to pronounce your name properly, but are you just joining the class? Because we already explained what Git and GitHub was, and this is really setting us back at this point. If I don't get an answer, I will just go ahead. All right, let's just go ahead. So I guess the majority of us understood. Okay, sorry about the network issues. Yeah. I explained that you breathe oxygen and you cannot see oxygen. It's liking that it's essential for you as a human being to live because we cannot do without oxygen. Kind of compare it to the same thing for developers. Like you cannot do without it, but it is absolutely necessary and recommended that you use Git in your when you are working as a developer. It's part of the things that your developer skills that you can work. What are the skills that you can Git and GitHub is one of those things. So Git allows you to work effortlessly inside your project and collaborate with other developers on your project. We'll come to explaining it in detail later on. Now, for GitHub, I mentioned that think of it as having a store and you sell items inside the store. The store helps you to manage everything inside that store. Let's even liken it to be a big company or okay, not have to be a company, a store. You have 2 or 3 staff who work with you inside that store. You can liken those staff to developers, and you can liken what you sell inside that store to be repositories. We'll come to explain repositories later on. But basically, GitHub is like this housing that enables you to work with other people on your project. Now, these projects are like items inside the store, and your staffs that work with you are like developers that we are going to be working together on that store. So I hope that's like quickly explain what it is. So what we've done is we've created a GitHub account. I've explained what Git and GitHub is now. Now on Windows, you have to install Git, and we just finished installing Git on Windows. I don't use Visual Studio Code here, so once you've already installed Git and you have Visual Studio Code, then by default you are good to go. You are already set up. Plus, you have a GitHub account. So let's go back to GitHub. Sorry, let's go back to Visual Studio Code. Now, I created a new folder. I want to start working in a new project, for example. And I created a new folder called My New Project. And I mentioned if you're using Windows, like if you're using Windows and I open File Explorer, I can right click and okay, this is Windows 11, but yes, so I can click on, there's no Visual Studio Code here, so there should be an option here for me to open the Visual Studio Code if I had Visual Studio Code installed here. but we don't have that yet. So let me just go back to just the code. So if you cannot do it through that way, open VS Code anyway. Let me minimize, let me create a new window here. So let's assume you're starting VS Code from scratch, like this. And we have a blank screen here as Visual Studio Code. Now, what we want to do is set up, open our folder here. So if you're on Windows, you would find that tab here. On Mac, you have to come to the top here and add folder or open folder in workspace. And I'll basically have to locate where my folder is. And this is my new project. And I open it here. So now I have my new project open here. I am not, there are no files inside this yet, and we have to create a new file inside it. Now, previously, I explained the process of connecting your Visual Studio Code to your GitHub account. And let me quickly do that again. So let me sign out. Sign up everything. Now, when you have Visual Studio Code, you have by default an extension called source control. And this allows you to work with Git and GitHub right inside your editor without having to leave here. Like for most basic things you want to work with. So, but for you to get there working on this, for
Cannot hear you.
Melinda.
Kwani wameacha kuongea ama mimi mwenyewe ndio nimezuba?
Hi everybody. I think Nehemiah's network went bad or something. Could be his network or it could be maybe his device or something. So you should join back. Or if you want, please mute your mic. It's echoing. Thank you. So he should join us back soon, right? But so far, how are we seeing the explanation? Okay, he's back. All right, Steph. You just sent the message. Network.
all right, my apologies. That was network. So let's quickly wrap this up for today. So we're in Visual Studio Code, and I mentioned that if you are using Visual Studio Code, you have to connect your accounts to GitHub. And to do that, you would have to sign into here. So you can just
use your screen.
Oh, I'm not sharing my screen, sorry. All right, sorry about that. So click here, and the easiest way actually to do that is just sign in and turn on. So come here and click on certain things and sign in and turn on and sign in with GitHub. So essentially, this does two things. One, signs you into GitHub on VS Code, allows you manage your whole VS Code settings with your GitHub account. So anywhere I use Visual Studio Code, if I sign in, all my settings and everywhere I configured my VS Code, it also syncs at the same time the way I left it from. So let's do this, and this would open in. So we already signed into Visual. We already signed in on GitHub, and that's why it just took us here. But let me assume that is not the case. So let me go back to GitHub and let's sign out. So signing out. Now let's do this process again. Sign in and turn on, sign in with GitHub. And if you're already signed in, you might not have to enter your username or email address. But remember, we just created a new account. So sorry, lost the account. Thanks. Okay. So this was the account we created earlier on. Now let's sign in. All right, click on open. And this will sign you into GitHub here. So when I come back here, that this is my GitHub username and I am signed in. Now, I mentioned that using it to work in your repository, let's come back to reference our store instance. Now, I can have people like up to 5 people, for example, like to decide that I buy things from Kano markets, furniture markets, any market basically. Or I have people that are traders who selling wholesale to me and I buy from them individually. Now, these things I buy from them, I have to buy from them and bring to my store and then put them in my store, decide the price that I want to sell these things at, and then display these items for people to see and buy. And if I have people that work with me, they also have to be aware about the items I have in my store and the prices at which I am selling those items. Now, in our store, if we bring new items into the store and just keep them here, okay, first thing first, we can't sell what we don't have, right? So we have to keep items inside our store. So inside this empty project that we set up here, I want to create files that I'm going to work with. You can decide to set up Git on an empty project like this, and that's even the recommended way, so that henceforth any other thing you do can be monitored and tracked by Git. So that's the first thing we have to do. So now to do this, I said that if you are using terminal here, wait. Sorry, let's go here. All right. So clicking on this extension here, I can click on initialize repository, and this would initialize Git inside this project. Now I'll select this is the folder I am currently on, and this is done. Now, this file is not yet on GitHub, or this project is not yet on GitHub. And because Visual Studio Code is connected to my GitHub account, by clicking on publish branch, it will take this empty repository as it is now and push to GitHub. And we should actually do that. So allow. Okay, we have to grant further permission to Visual Studio Code to read and access our data on GitHub. So authorize Visual Studio Code. Open. So yes, in creating a repository, there are two types of repositories. There's the public repository on GitHub and the private repository on GitHub. The private ones mean only you can access it and the people you give permission to access that repository. The public one means that anybody can access it. And let me show you what the public repository is. So we are signed in on GitHub already. So this should take us to our GitHub homepage. Now, I can try to search for, let's say I want to build a portfolio website. I can search for a portfolio in all of GitHub. And what this will do is set GitHub for all public repositories. So any repository you see here are made public. If they are private, then you cannot see them here. So this is what a public repository looks like. And let me click on a random one, this first one.
Please, am I the only one that can't hear anything?
You're not alone.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so while we are waiting for Nehemiah, so far, based on what he has explained, are there any questions? I can help answer some of them before he gets back. Does anybody have any questions? Any questions? Anything you guys say we can ask or yeah. Okay. Peace raised their hands. Apart from Peace, who else has a question? So I'm guessing. Okay. So I'm guessing apart from Peace, no other person has a question then. All right. So Peace, you can ask.
Okay, good evening. Good evening. You were saying something about using a VS Code for it. I think that should be an editor. Which other can you use any other editor for it if you're not using a VS Code? And then he said we should download I think the GitHub desktop. Do we still need to use that if there's a VS Code editor for making use of this JIT? I think that's my question.
Okay, so the GitHub desktop is a graphical user interface. So what that means is that it's an app that enables you to interact with Git. So he told you all to download what is called Git SCM. So it's supposed to be like a module that you would add to your system. Like he said, by default, if you're making use of a Mac device, Git already comes pre-installed. If you're making use of Windows, you don't have Git by default. So you have to install Git onto your system. That way, you can be able to make use of Git, right? So what you installed, the Git SCM, is actually like a terminal. So everybody, as long as you're making use of a laptop, you have a terminal. So yeah, for those of us that watch some cyber-related movies, you see some people opening up one terminal like that, one black page, and then they're just typing, and some things are just scrolling up. That interface you see there is called the terminal. So what you installed, if any has okay, let me ask just to make it clearer. Has anybody installed Git SCM already on their system while he was explaining? Has anybody installed it?
Yes, I did, but I'm just seeing Lillian at desktop, something, typing something. I don't know what I'm supposed to do.
Okay, so can you share your screen so that I would explain what it's? I think maybe explaining visually will make more sense than just saying it. So can you share your screen?
I'm coming.
Apart from Lillian, did anybody also try to install this here while on call?
Yes, ma.
Okay.
Yes, ma, I have.
Okay. All right. That's good. So I'll just walk you guys through some of the things. So, okay, so please open up the Git SCM exactly. So you see that what is opening here is a terminal. So this is a terminal, but the difference between this and your normal terminal is like this is built for Git. So if you want to know your default terminal, go to while I'm hitting of Windows, and please go to your press the Windows and R. Okay, wait, Nehemiah is there. Okay, you're back. Welcome back. Hi. I was just trying to keep them busy while you are here, while you are not around. Hi. So continue. I think your mic is muted. I can't hear you.
Sorry. I was asking if you guys could follow along with me. I can see that you are helping them. Was anybody able to follow along, like based on what we've done so far up to now?
Your camera is on.
Yes, I'm aware it's on. I want to know how far we followed along. I can see somebody sharing their screen. Sorry. You can unmute your mic, sorry, and talk, and let me know how far you before we wrap it up. Is everybody talk shy now, or you want to use the chat instead? I'm just saying I want to know how far we've been able to come along with the class before we continue with where it stops.
Okay, somebody asked a question, so that was what I was trying to explain. So I can tell her to ask the question again, so that you'd explain to her.
Okay, you can go ahead.
Okay, so Peace, you can ask your question again.
Okay, good evening. I was saying you told us to download GitHub desktop. Yes, the app, and then I was thinking if we're using a VS Code, because I'm not sure you are using your GitHub desktop, whether you are using the app also, but you are using the VS Code to do things on Git. So I was asking if we're using the VS Code, do we still need to download the GitHub desktop, or that one has its own purpose and then this VS Code has its own purpose? Something of that nature.
Okay, I understand. I mentioned that there are many ways using Git and GitHub. Using Git, sorry, so GitHub can just be used on GitHub. But also, you can use GitHub desktop to be able to manage your sync with Git and your project, whatever project you're working on, whatever project you are working on, and manage that on GitHub using GitHub desktop app. So I mentioned that you can use command prompt, for example, you can use git bash, which is what I saw on the screen. You can use terminal inside VS Code, or you could use the GitHub extension also inside VS Code. In addition, you can use GitHub desktop app. So there are like 5 ways you can work with. It is up to you, your preference. So this is what we are split into 2 broad categories: visual interface and graphical design interface, GUI, or non-GUI. So GUI means it's easy for me to interact with, like Visual Studio Code with the GUI. I can just go around and play around. Same thing with GitHub desktop. It is easy for me to just see what's going on there, and I can just understand what I'm doing by just saying and clicking and doing stuff. If I'm using terminal command prompts or terminal command prompt or Visual Studio Code terminal, these are non-GUI interfaces, and I have to use Git commands to work in those places. So it is up to you, your preferences. Now, the first one I showed us was using the Visual Studio Code extension, and you can also use GitHub desktop applications to get it. So I want to show us how you can use the GitHub extension to do that, and then also show how you can use terminal. And lastly, we'll talk about how to use GitHub desktop. So anyone you have a
I think he has gone off again.
So did you hear me? Sorry, who asked the question again? I just go
I
ahead.
think your network went bad, sorry.
Let me share my screen. Please. All right, let's come back. Public repositories. I think we get that at this point. From the name also, you should get that. All right, we are back. Right. Okay, so we are going to thank you. So let's do this again. Uh, all right, so let's go to publishing this. Let's create a public tree, and this will push to GitHub. Okay, let's just cancel it. Let's get it done. So one, we are getting an error here, and it's starting what I don't want to start explaining this. Take us a while. So I'm just going to use the terminal to set this up, and this is Visual Studio Code terminal. So click on terminal, terminal. And what we want to do, and the command to do that, this is an empty repository. This startup will show us nothing here. No commit yet on branch name, and there's nothing we are doing here. But I want to push it as it is to GitHub. So it's push. Now, we've not created this repository on GitHub before. So we have to basically use this command. And what this will do is ask GitHub to create a new repository on GitHub and link it from that GitHub repository we have here. That's the whole summary of what this command does. Origin means GitHub. That's the source of truth we're talking about. And main is the name of the branch that we are currently working on. It's a different branch like master. This main becomes master. So let's click what. Okay. Okay. Let's go to GitHub. Let's create a new repository first on GitHub. So click on view. And let's give this, you can actually give it any name actually you want to do it. Well, let's call it my new project right here. Or I said any name, so let's just say new project. Description is optional. For now, we are keeping that public, and we skip the rest of this information and treat it tomorrow. So let's just go ahead to create this. And now that this is created, we want to add this as a new project. So one, we have this repository set up on GitHub, but there's no way we are aware about that on our local repository here. So there are two things. One, we have a project we are working on, and we've created Git inside it locally. On GitHub, we've also created a new repository called new project. But for us to, we have to create a link between this repository on Git here and what we have on our laptop locally. And there are a number of ways we can do that. So if you're using command line, for example, git bash, git terminal, like terminal on its own, or command prompt, or terminal inside VS Code, can copy this code. What this first one will do is create an entirely new project if you don't have it set up before on your computer. But if you have a repository created, which we have already created here, what you have to do is just copy this and do git remote add. Now, to explain this command, remote has to do with GitHub origin. That is where we have Git set up. And what we want to do is add a link, a symbolic link to the repository we have on GitHub, and that is it's https://github.com/my username /my new project name and then .git. If I look at my URL here, this is the link to the project. But in the Git repository, it has to have .git in it. So this mentions that the Git repository we have on GitHub. So we just need this first part for now. Let's copy this. When we created our repository, the name was main, so we don't have to use the second one. And then it is here. Okay, I already have the separate.
Your network is really bad. Your voice is cracking, and we're not really getting the message.
Sorry about that. I can't help it per se. Well, I am having an issue that I don't want to explain how exactly my new project would. It's a bit. Okay, give me a moment. I'm just going to delete. And let's open it from scratch. I don't need to follow along with this. I'm trying to fix what issue we have here. All right. Down. Let's review this whole thing from the beginning. First, let's create a new repository. Yeah. Let's call it code mixers. Right, that one is in the
Sorry, please, sir. Can I talk?
Yes.
Okay, is it a must we will have to code before we produce a new folder that will be using to work on anything in JIT? Or
Sorry, a
this
new
is
what?
just if we want to create a folder, like
Yeah.
what you're
No, you
doing
don't.
now, is it a must that we code, or maybe there is something else that's, well, maybe there's another app that we can just use it to go straight to the point and then
To
do
create a new
whatever we
folder
want
on
to
your
do.
computer.
Yeah, like
Sorry, do
what
you
you're
mean to create
doing
a
now.
folder on your computer?
I mean what you're doing now, the coding and so. the writing the computer languages and so on your terminal.
No. It is not. It is not. It is not. Alternatively, you can use GitHub Desktop. So if you have GitHub Desktop set up here, give me a moment. Let me clear this repository I have set up here. If you set up GitHub Desktop and we are done, this is something like you should see. Now, you would have to link your GitHub Desktop application to GitHub. So once you are done, if you have repositories on GitHub, you find them. If you don't have any, this will be empty. Now, there are a number of ways you can create a new repository. Add an existing repository if you have one already on your laptop. Create a new repository on your laptop. Clone one from the internet. So, for example, this one we just created, and then this is like a tutorial to walk you through how to use the repository. Let's go ahead with cloning one from the internet. So let's create a new repository on GitHub first. We already have this here. And what we did was created a new repository. So we have, so this thing came to GitHub. Anyway, I want to delete everything. So those of us who are just starting from scratch, exactly what we're doing. Are you? So if you don't have anything yet on your GitHub account, that's the reason why I'm doing this process, so that you can know where to create a new one from. Once again. If you go to github.com after you've signed in, this is exactly something like you will see. To create a new repository, if there's a button called new here, click on it. There's no one and you see this. Also click on it. Give your project a new name. Let's call this repository. Description, what is this repository for? I'm just going to give it like that. It is optional. Let's keep it as public. And I said I will explain this the rest of this tomorrow. So let's just go ahead and create the repository. Now, let's say we are using GitHub Desktop. Yeah, and we want to clone from the internet. Click on that, click on URL. Or if you have a repository already created here, let me check if I have that. Okay, so it didn't show up here. But if you already have your repository created, you might see it come up here under your name. If there's no one, just click on URL, come back to GitHub, and copy this one that ends with .git. So let's copy this, then paste it. And let's choose a new one. All right. So let me keep it here. And then click on clone. Uh-huh. Right. So that didn't work. Let's create a new repository instead. Give your repository a name. Give the description, unless if you want to. Choose where you want to save it to. Click this. And then let's click repository. And now you can either open this inside Visual Studio Code if you want to, or publish this to GitHub. So remember, I already have a repository default code fixed, so this might give us confidence. Again, I'm going to delete this. All right, let's try and publish for to GitHub. Let's publish. All right, so that did it. And if we refresh GitHub, wait. Oh, I'm sorry. I see where I am making my mistake. So I have two GitHub accounts. This one we created, and I have a former GitHub account. That's what has been giving me errors. I've been trying to push the wrong GitHub account. Give me a moment. Let me switch back to my main account. So this repository we just pushed, and we don't have anything inside it except from this are done by this automatic tags. So the problem I've been having was trying to push the wrong GitHub account. That's my work. So you can see that here I just used the GitHub desktop application, and we didn't have to use Visual Studio Code or write code to do anything. Now inside here also, I can decide to now open this repository I just created in Visual Studio Code by clicking on that button, and this opens it. And now I can start doing my work. Yeah. Stuff. So I would advise probably you just download the GitHub desktop. Yeah, if you're not really technical or you don't really enjoy having to use code to do a lot of things, just stick with using the GUI as GitHub desktop to do things. So now if we make changes inside this file, let's say we create a new file called html.index. We create this file here. Now I mentioned that these files are currently on track. So while this is a Git repository, we come back to GitHub desktop. You can see the changes we've made. So it's just a very nice alternative to using code and to automating a lot of things. And if I want to make Git now aware of this file that I have here, inside here, I can either click here and then use this to add all at once or add them individually. And what this will do is add them to Git index. Now, we come back to our explanation of this stuff. I mentioned that. Sorry, were you saying something?
Yes, please, can you come again? At this point, I started rushing.
Okay. So we created new files inside our repository, and we want Git to become aware of this file. So even though we have Git set up here, it's not going to track what files we have until we ask it to. So at this point, Git is aware of the files we have here, but it's not being tracked. That's why we have view here for untracked. Now, if we are using GitHub desktops, we can also see the files that are here but they are not being tracked. We only know that these files are in this place. So one, coming back to the instance of the store, when we buy new goods, we have to bring them to the store and keep them in the store. So at this point, we just have the files here, and we've not registered them with Git. So in this case, we just brought the goods here. We have a bookkeeping checklist, for example. We've not entered these goods into this bookkeeping, so I'll know that these are goods that belong to us inside the store, and that's what we want to do. So I mentioned if you're using the GitHub extension in VS Code, by clicking on this one here, you can add all of them at once. It's called staging. And basically, you're adding them to Git index. Git is now aware of these files and their current states. Alternatively, inside GitHub desktop, yes, I can add them here. Okay, that's the change we made. Sorry, let's keep that. And if I want to do this on GitHub desktop, I have to provide a commit message, and that would automatically stage them and make Git aware of what version they are currently. Inside here, let's stage them first. So let's stage. If I go back to here, okay, we didn't make any changes. So let's just add this file. Let's add everything. So at this point, Git is aware of these files. Now we want to create a timestamp in history. So let's go back to the earlier reference I made. Now we brought these goods into the store and we want to determine how much we are going to start selling them. That's like our reference points. So I mentioned that the price may change, may become lesser or more expensive in the future. But we can always come back to the point that we set it at 14 naira, for example, to start selling this thing. So in our bookkeeping record, let's say we have price of goods. The first price we entered was 14 naira. So at that point, we can begin to track what other change in price we made to that particular good and to that particular item, for example. That's what we want to do here. So we've added these files. We now want to provide a commit message. This commit message is the time. Please let me know if you can hear me.
Yes, you stop talking around commit message.
A commit message is a timestamp, and that's basically what is the. All right, so let me go back again. I said a commit message is a timestamp, and a commit message helps Git to have a reference point from when you started tracking changes to that file, if it's just one file, or to all the files basically that this commit message affects. Now, it's only the changes that are staged here that the commit would affect. So to demonstrate that, I undid one here by clicking on the minus sign here. And let me just commit only these two files here. So let's enter a commit message as created HTML and JS files and click on commit. Now, because it was only those two files I staged, yes, that were added to Git index. These are the files that were committed. So if I want to commit this file separately, I would have to stage it also and then give a commit message. So let's say update added CSS file and then commit. And this commits the file. Alternatively, let's make changes to our file. Gibberish here. Let's make changes to all three of them. Let's leave share. Now, as we make changes to this file, we can see that Git we now have modified. So because Git has started tracking this file, we can compare what we currently have inside this file, and that's first reference it had, and know that we've made changes from that point to this point, and it can identify what changes we made. If you want to see the changes, by clicking on the file, this is the new changes that we've made shown in green. If we deleted something to be shown in red, so Git is aware of what changes we've made to this file. Now, we've made this change. Optionally, instead of having to like add every file individually here or adding everything here. If you just want to commit everything here at the same time, just use a commit message, update, make some changes, and that's all, and commit, and to just both stage and commit all the files at the same time. If I click on this button, what to do is push back to GitHub. So that's why I mentioned that you can actually just use the GitHub extension here to manage everything working inside the repository. To go back to GitHub desktop, we don't have any changes we've made. We can't see the changes because we've already committed them. And what we have here is just a push to origin. But let's say we make further changes to one file, just one file. So I properly decided to create doc type HTML. Or let's say I cleared everything here and I created doc type HTML. So now I set up a proper HTML file. If I look at GitHub desktop, this is the file I changed, and this is the changes I've made to it. So you can use GitHub desktop, or you can use your extension here to manage it. If you are the code type of guy, then probably tomorrow we'll talk about how to use commands to like really explain this. But for today, know that you can use GitHub extension here and you can use GitHub desktop also to set this up. So unless if you really want to be the code person, I think this is easy. I almost know how to use my editor like terminal, unless if I have specific changes or I have a problem with Git and I have to resolve them using Git commands. At that point, only Git commands can save you sometimes. Well, for most of what you are going to be doing, make changes to a file, stage those files, push them to GitHub. The GitHub desktop application and the GitHub extension here can just enable you do that. So let's kind of do we created the first, we did not create head. So give me a moment. Let me do a quick. All right. Sorry. All right, so these links are I've just basically set up a plain HTML page. And again, if you come back to GitHub desktop app, this is the changes made, and this is our style.css. Now, this red line means we deleted that file that was here, sorry, the code that was here, and this green line means this is what we added. Also, if we come back here and click on this, now this is the change we've made so far. We deleted this line and this line, and replace them with what is here. If we click on the CSS file, we deleted this guy and we replace this with this guy. So this helps us see visually what changes and at what lines those changes were made. Now, let's say I want to commit just one of this guy, and let's use GitHub desktop to do this time. So I only want to commit the index file first. So I uncheck style.css. I said set up favorite page. Yeah. Now, the description helps you if you want to give longer descriptions. Your commit message is generally limited to just 50 characters. It's recommended, so you keep it at 50 characters. If not, on GitHub is to be truncated. So only the first 50 characters will be shown. So keep your commit message as concise as possible. If you want to provide further information, you can then set it up here inside this place. So here I can see I added titles, I linked CSS, I added headers. So this is like a much more better description of what I've done. And then commit to main, and that would only commit that index to CSS files. Now, if I want to commit my, sorry, that's HTML file. If I want to commit my CSS files, I'll click on this, and then I can provide a commit message here. Added new file. And let me give description. So deleted previous script, added styling for body and now commit to main will commit back to main. And if I want to push to GitHub, if I come back to VS Code, I can see that all those changes I've made have already been staged. So Git works like that. It's just like as it's happening in real time that you can see those changes. So I can click here and this will push the code to the repository on GitHub. Or inside GitHub desktop, I can click here and this will push to the repository also on GitHub. So that's it done. Let's go back to GitHub and see. I'll refresh this part. You can see the changes we've made here. And we can see the number of commits we've made so far. So we talked about Git being able to keep track of what you've done so far. So let's go to commits. These are every commit we've made on this file. And we can inspect our repository at each time of this commit. So currently, you know, this is the state of the repository. This is how it is. But if I want to see how this repository was at the very first commit, how it looked like at that point, I can click on the commit here. This was the first. Sorry, can you guys hear me?
Yes, I can.
I can hear you.
All right. So I said, if I want to see how the repository was at this particular commit, or let's even take second commit, for example, I would click on this and when it allows us to open it, I'll be able to see how the repository was at the particular time this commit was made. If I'm working with somebody else on this repository, this commit message, the name here would be the person who made this particular commit message. And I can see that this person was the one. So that's something up for today. Is network really disturbed? I was too fast also, I guess. Well, tomorrow we'll go a little bit in depth. I'll touch on like if we decide to use terminal, for example, or command line, how you could use that to work with GitHub, and how you can work with other developers also on using on a project at the same time. So yes, this was how the repository was at this commit history. So it allows you to keep track of those changes. If you are using GitHub, I'm using something called a Git length extension. And what it allows me to do is basically see this is my repository. I can see all commits I've made so far inside this repository. So yeah, this extension just helps me to work with it much more fluently inside the repository. Does anybody have any questions? Quickly.
Okay, my first question is, when we install Git, and then what are we supposed to do after installing Git?
Okay, do you have what code editor do you use on your laptop?
What?
Code editor do you use on your laptop?
VS Code.
Okay, so once you have Git installed, it means you can use Git anywhere else in your laptop. That's what helps you. If you don't have Git installed, then you cannot just create a Git repository on your laptop locally. You can't work with Git locally. So once you have that done, then that is fine. The first step, the steps I walked us through was you can go to your file explorer, for example, and if you start a new project, let's create a new project. Sorry, what's your name? The person who asked the question, what's your name? I can't see the
Lillian.
Come again.
Lillian.
Lillian. Okay, so Lillian. Sorry. Let's create a new repository here. So if I have a new project I'm working with, now open this folder inside VS Code. So let's go to VS Code. And I mentioned in Windows, you can do that by right clicking. If you have the option, you can do that there. If you don't, good and fine, just go to VS Code, click on file there. And if you click on open folder inside an already existing repository on VS Code, it will open it will just clear this whole thing and open just that folder. But I just want to add that folder inside the same workspace I have. So I'll use this option. And then I would find this folder called Lillian and add it. So let me clear all of this. And if I go to Lillian, it's empty. I don't have any project file here. Also, if I go to this place here, let me close this up. Okay, so you know what? Let me just open it as a folder so that you will not be confused with that. So we have a new VS Code here, and then we just have Lillian here. If I click on this extension here, I don't have any repository set up here. Now, if I want to, I can use here to create a new repository. But let's say I just want to create a new one using GitHub Desktop. We will have GitHub Desktop. So I know that clicking here would set up a new repository inside this project, but let's use GitHub Desktop this time around. Let's add a new repository. So create a new repository. Okay. Let's add one. Sorry. Now let's find that folder. This guy, William, and then open it. So currently, this tells us that we don't have Git set up inside this project yet. And if we want to create a repository here instead, now if we click this, it creates a new, it will set up Git inside that project. So let's click on that and give it a name. Lillian, you can leave the rest of this. You can give a description. We've already chosen the path, and let's just go ahead to create a repository. All right, so we've done that. This is Lillian. Currently, this is where we are, Lillian, and we don't have any changes here. If we go back to VS Code, see that this art has been removed, and we've created a repository site here. So now I can begin to work with files here. I can create new files that I want to work, or create a folder instead with CSS, for example. HTML. And if I come back to GitHub Desktop, I can only see the file that I have modified here. But if I create a commit message, it will commit everything, including this folder that I've already created. If I come back to see the extension here, I can only see the specific file. But if I create a file inside this place, index.html, I come back here, I will see HTML/index.html. So both the folder and the files and everything are being tracked. And then for me, I can do whatever I want to do. set up initialize repository by creating a commit message. This is the main. And as long as my account is connected to GitHub, which it already have, if you are using GitHub desktop, clicking on publish repository will send this up to GitHub. So I will leave the name as linear and I'll click publish. So this is done. Now let's go back to our GitHub accounts and let's see our repositories. Repositories. And this is the repository I just created. I didn't specify if I wanted the public or private. I don't know if I saw that option, but GitHub created the private repository. So I'm opening the file, the folder, sorry, for the repository. But you don't understand how you can start working with Git inside your project after installing Git.
Yes, I do. But I noticed something on your VS Code after you created the whole Lilian stuff. There's this Git attribute that is showing, and it's not showing on mine when I do that.
It is not necessary. Okay, how will I put it? I think that comes from how I configured Git on my laptop. So I mentioned that I'm using Mac. This is currently Mac, not the Windows terminal. So the way Git is installed here, probably it's how it is configured to create that .git attributes by default. So let me open up that file and see what is inside, because I didn't look at it before. Nothing much. When you're done, actually, you can delete the file if you don't know it. But if you set up, because you are using Windows and you install Git, you have to install Git. And probably that's why that doesn't show up here. So it is fine. You don't need that file. It is not necessary. It is not needed. You can keep it or you cannot keep it if you want to. And by default, say it is not pushed to GitHub. So, okay, it's actually pushed to GitHub. So I found it here. But this is the folder we created. And this is, wait, in a moment. We created the CSS folder, but it was not committed. Now because we don't have any file inside it. And let me check the terminal. All right, so everything is fine. I deleted the folder for these attributes. So that's the way to check that. So before a folder can be committed, you have to have files inside it. So it is not push empty folder basically off to GitHub. You have to have files inside that folder. That's why CSS is not good, but folder history not good. All right. Lillian, does that answer your questions?
Yes, thank you.
All right. Any other questions? I have to jump into another meeting by 7, so we have like 37 minutes left. Any question from anyone else? Okay. Hi, Luis. Are you still here?
Yes, I am. Hi, Nehemiah. Hi. Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, and for today's workshop session, thank you very much for your time. Thank you, and thank you guys for joining in. I know it spanned more than expected. It was supposed to be for 2 hours and end by 6 p.m., but how everything went. So yeah, so sorry about the extra time that was taken, and this call was recorded, so to made available. I don't know what happened. I think I experienced a glitch. So the first one, I think it's caught. The first recording caught and it's already made available. I just wanted to point out something briefly before we just end today's discussion, and that's that there are some of us here who are not doing anything coding related, because there are some here who are doing technical writing. And the reason why we said that those who are doing technical writing are supposed to join is because you're going to be working in a team here with developers, and you're going to be creating documentations. And chances are you're going to be editing a file called a readme.md. I don't know if Miracle or Peace has explained that before in the technical writing class.
But that readme.md contains very vital information about a project. So if you are editing it into a project that is already making use of Git, that is already on GitHub, then you need to know how to make use of Git. In fact, if you're a technical writer, right, and you're working in a team of developers, it is essential you understand how to make use of Git. So code or no code, even if you're not coding, it's important. So you may not get the techie parts, that's the one using command line, but like you said, the desktop parts, that's the one that you're dealing with the interface. If we can make use of that, then too, that is fine as well. So right. Okay then. So okay. So I think that will be all for today. Yeah, that will be all for today. So see you guys tomorrow. I think 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. See you guys tomorrow. And just keep your questions. The recording will be made available. So just keep your questions and watch the recording and just keep your questions and ask Nehemiah tomorrow. Yeah. All right then.
Thank you, guys. See you tomorrow.
Bye everyone.